My name is Jill Coyle, and welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce, where we talk the nitty-gritty aspects of divorce and help each other come through this not only surviving, but thriving. I'm a divorce attorney, and I'm interviewing other experts and people just like you who are going through or have been through a divorce, so you can have the latest and greatest information on all things before, during, and after divorce. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. This is our celebrity edition, and what better way to finish May than with the hottest topic on the internet right now, which is Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And if you remember, I did a podcast a few months ago, and I had my good friend and attorney that works with me, Sterling Swank, as my co-host. So welcome to the show again, Sterling.
Yeah, thank you.
It made perfect sense that we redo this or just update it for all of the fans out there that are listening, that are coming up with their own predictions. As you know, at the end of May, they're going to finish all of their trial. They're going to finish their rebuttal. And then on Friday, on May, it's specifically May 27th, they're going to actually do closing arguments, and the jury is then going to deliberate. And we have no idea what's going to happen, but we're going to kind of talk about some of our predictions and what's going on, kind of update you if you haven't been following along. It's been pretty entertaining, and it's kind of fun. So when this show comes out, we may actually have a verdict, and obviously the show won't be able to tell you what's going on. We might just have to do a part 3, Sterling.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the show. Thanks for doing this with me again.
Yeah, I love this.
So, the last time that we talked about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, it was before the trial started, and we talked about their heated divorce and what was going on with that. And I think it would be really helpful if we just take like a 5-minute briefing of what led us up to this defamation case. And I've been doing so much material on Johnny Depp, I feel like I kind of have it memorized. But if you know, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard met each other on the set of the Rum Diaries back in 2011. Now, in 2011, they were both in relationships. Johnny Depp was with his longtime partner, who he has 2 children with. And Amber Heard was dating and in a relationship with her girlfriend at the time. One of the things me and Sterling talked a little bit about was that in 2009, Amber Heard was arrested and charged with domestic violence against her current girlfriend partner at that time. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And we knew that was kind of going to be a big issue because she now is dealing with domestic violence and claiming she's a victim of domestic violence now.
Yeah.
And those charges were actually eventually dropped, where her partner chose not to pursue those charges, but they were there.
Right.
And in 2011, that's when Johnny Depp and Amber Heard met. But they, became pretty good friends on the set of Rum Diaries from everything we heard, and from now hearing the testimony of Amber Heard. But it wasn't until a year later, when they had broken up, that they then got back together and kind of started this friendship. It was actually when the Rum Diaries started doing their press tour, which was a couple years after they had originally met on the set.
Right.
And it was their press tour where they both then were out of their relationships, and their relationship took off.
Right.
I think everything that we've heard about their relationship is it was definitely passionate.
Yeah.
It was definitely what I would say is an unhealthy relationship.
For sure. Yeah.
Johnny Depp has been struggling with sobriety for a really long time. Some of the things that came out from the trial that we didn't know, and just jump in here because I could talk forever about this, but Johnny Depp was raised in a very abusive home. His dad was very, very abusive, which was one of the reasons why he said he could never be physically violent, because he grew up with that, him and his sister. and you knew the ramifications from that. And then we also learned a lot about Amber Heard and her, growing up. And we also learned some things about Amber Heard that from medical testimony from the psychologist that diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder and grandiose personality disorder, which would explain a lot of her being volatile and up and down and emotional.
And like that's one of the things that's so interesting about it is like all of Johnny Depp's like previous people that he's had relationships with have come in and been like, no, he's great, like we really liked him. And then for Amber Heard, like, and it's been like memed pretty hard, which it's like I don't know how comfortable I am with that portion of it,
right?
But there's like pictures that'll just pop up on the internet from like previous things that kind of point to like this is a pattern for her. And like one of the things that I saw was like when her and Elon Musk dated for a while, and there's a picture of the two of them, and he like his face is like bruised on one side, and it's just like this seems to like this is a pattern for her and not so much for Johnny Depp.
Right. Well, and when Amber Heard got the part of Rum Diaries, nobody knew who she was. And in fact, she didn't even really have a big part in Rum Diaries. But her, one of the contradictions in the trial, which is silly for her to lie about this, because what's the big deal about it? But there is some tapings back in 2011 when she was doing the Rum Diaries where she talked about how she grew up loving Johnny Depp. She loved the work that he did, and she was like a total fangirl. And then she talked about her mom being the same way. And then on the stand, she specifically testified in her defamation case that she knew who Johnny Depp was because he's like the biggest movie star in the world, but that she said that she didn't know the work he did.
Right.
And I'm thinking, in 2011, how have you not heard of Edward Scissorhands or, he was on 21 Jump Street, or how have you not seen or heard of one of the Pirates of the Caribbean?
Right. Like that movie was huge because everyone thought it would be like, everyone's like a movie about a ride. Yeah. And then it was huge and like incredibly successful and also pretty good in my opinion.
Exactly. And he had made a few of them by then and it had just become one of, some of the biggest movies. So that's one of the lies that she's been caught in, and it's just, it doesn't make sense why she would lie about that. In fact, there has been several things that have come up to be proven that she is lying on the stand that in my mind are like completely irrelevant to why she would lie about it. But I think what's happened is Amber has, because of her, grandiose, like she has created stories in her head that she can't even keep the straight from the truth to the lies.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's that whole part about every time you access a memory, you rewrite it a little bit. And so she also has like this other personality disorder, and in connection with that, like it's just going to be even worse for her to be able to like keep track of all of these different stories that she's creating in her head.
Right. And one of the things she testified to, like, I got Aquaman, like I auditioned for it, Johnny didn't help me, and Johnny testified that he had talked to some of the producers, like said, hey, she'd be really good for it. So it's stuff like that, like she really wants to show that she was making her own career. But dating Johnny Depp's clearly going to help you in Hollywood.
Yeah, and I could see him even, and I don't know, like all I know is like an online personality, but I could even see just in a relationship being like, whispering to somebody's ear like, hey, she'd be great for this, but don't tell her that I talked to you. Right. So that it makes her feel more comfortable about taking the role. Right.
And Aquaman was the biggest role that she had gotten thus far. To be truthful, I don't even know what else she's done. Like it like Aquaman was her like big break kind of thing. She got paid quite a bit of money for it, and and things were going to take off. So one of the things that we talked about in the last podcast is that they were divorced. Okay, so they had their relationship that started in about the end of 2012 and 2013. They claimed that it was very volatile. It was Amber testified that there was many instances of abuse. Then in 2014, Johnny proposed to her, and Amber would always talk about how the relationship was filled with so much love, and she was the happiest girl in the world. I mean, that story that she talked on the stand about how she was just so excited and she's just the happiest person in the world when he proposed to her. But just previously, like, she had testified about how he had, like, beat the, crap out of her, and, like, the instance where she was sitting on the couch, and she can't even recall that story correctly, but he slapped her 3 times. But then she's talking about how, she's the happiest person in the world when she, claims she's been in this very, very abusive relationship. And they then get married in this 2015 ceremony. No, sorry, 2014 ceremony. And then they got, the divorce ended up happening in 2015. So the timeline for them doesn't really match up. And this is where everything kind of goes down. And so in 2015, when she files for divorce, is when the temporary restraining order was filed.
Right.
And what happened is that she filed a temporary restraining order alleging that she was a victim of domestic violence. And the judge signed that temporary restraining order. So me and Sterling do this for a living. And these restraining orders are protective orders. They can be called, they get signed ex parte, which means that they get signed on a temporary basis without being able for the other side to present any of their evidence. And the reason why they do that is they clearly want to be able to give some emergent relief for people that are literally experience this kind of violence. And so that's what was signed, right?
Right.
And a lot of people have made this hoopla of, it was signed, so therefore Johnny Depp must be an abuser. But Johnny Depp had the ability to present evidence and then go to the court later to say, hey, this never happened and a permanent restraining order should not take place.
Right.
But in their divorce, what ended up happening is they negotiated the divorce to where the temporary restraining order was going to be dissolved anyways.
Yeah, which is often like a tactic that we use.
Yep.
Is it's like, okay, we'll get rid of this, restraining order in response to like having some like mutual restraints in the divorce instead.
Right. And it's very common to do that because at the end of the day, we don't need... The restraining order is to get you guys apart, and the divorce is what does that. Like, if it was a violent relationship, getting you divorced is the best thing we can do for you because getting you away from each other is going to be the best protection, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. So in the divorce, Johnny Depp negotiated to give her, we now know, because they've always been saying she got $7 million out of the divorce. But we now know she got about $14 million worth of benefit from the divorce.
Okay.
Meaning he paid off some of the liabilities of the divorce, and she got it all tax-free. $7 million in cash. And we know that she claimed at the time of the divorce that she was going to donate every penny of that to charity. And she claimed 2 charities that were closest to her heart, the Children's Hospital and then the ACLU.
Yeah.
And so $7 million was going to be... And it's been interesting because since we've talked about this, even that story has changed a little bit. Because what we find out is when she said, I want to donate all this money to charity, Johnny Depp was like, great, I'll donate the money I'm supposed to give you to charity.
Yeah.
And she came back and said, no, you can't do that. You have to give the money to me and then I will give it to charity.
Yeah, and it's like, that's suspicious.
Right. And the biggest thing is Johnny Depp clearly wanted to just give it to charity. It would give him a tax benefit.
Yeah.
And, but she was like, nope, if you want to give it directly to the charity, you have to double it. That's what she literally claimed on the stand. And Johnny was like, why would I do that?
Yeah.
So Johnny turned around and ended up paying her in full within 15 minutes of the decree of divorce being signed.
Oh, wow.
And we found out on the stand that she has only donated about $300,000 of her own money to charity. She said that she would donate $3 million to the ACLU. And this is a big, huge thing that happened because what we find out is that the ACLU, she wanted to be an ambassador for them. And by doing that, what they do, because it's a nonprofit charity organization, is that if you give them a donation, then you can become an ambassador for something. And a lot of celebrities do that.
Right.
Because ACLU, they do a lot of good. They do a lot of things that are really good. And so Amber Heard said, I want to be an ambassador for a survivor of domestic violence. And so they said, okay, with your $3 million pledge, which is what she pledged to them, which she hasn't paid.
Yeah.
She got to be the ambassador for the ACLU. And that's where this op-ed comes out. So one thing I want to talk about real fast is in their divorce decree, they get rid of the temporary restraining order. They have mutual non-disparagement clause. So talk about that.
About disparagement clauses?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just normally, like, I like to make sure that those are in there for the kids, because I think that that's, like, that parental alienation that can happen because you're disparaging can be really damaging to that relationship. But regardless, like, for people in high positions like this, like, you want that in there, and it's just, you cannot talk. It's basically just don't talk trash about your spouse.
Right. And that's exactly what they did. They had this non-disparagement clause in their divorce. And then they mutually released a statement to the press after the divorce. And it said something like, our relationship was volatile at times, but it was always done out of love and passion or something like that. And so in 2015, Johnny Depp thought he was done. Go their merry way.
Yeah.
She's not going to be abused allegedly anymore. He's not going to be abused allegedly anymore. And they get to go in their merry way. Right? Yeah. But in 2017, she then decided that, I want to be this ambassador for the ACLU for a survivor of domestic violence. What big movement was going on right then?
Me too.
I mean, it had blown up with Harvey Weinstein in 2016. Yeah. So she wanted to, and it was catapulting women to a place in Hollywood that they had never been.
Right. So if I'm understanding this correctly, she wants to be an ambassador as a survivor of domestic abuse?
Yeah, she wants to be that woman to be the face of a domestic violence survivor.
Oh, okay.
And be the inspiration for other women to seek help and get out of volatile relationships.
Okay.
So the ACLU, part of this, obviously they want to benefit by bringing more attention to them and their ambassadors and what they're doing. And so they wanted to write an op-ed with Amber to talk about the abuse. And what's interesting is we just knew before the trial what the op-ed said. Which the op-ed said that she was a survivor of domestic violence. It didn't directly say Johnny Depp's name, but it was clearly a description of her being a survivor of domestic abuse, and the only person she could have been talking about was Johnny Depp.
Right.
And so she comes out with this op-ed, but what's interesting in the trial, Amber Heard testified that that the ACLU actually wanted to actually name Johnny Depp, and that they wanted to be very, very specific about the allegations, so they wanted her to talk specifically about it. But after going back and forth with lawyers and with Amber Heard, now Amber Heard's claiming she's the one who said, I want to take Johnny Depp's name out. I think it was the lawyer saying, hey, Amber, you could get in a lot of trouble for this because of your non-disparagement clause in your decree. So they went back and forth, and so Johnny is technically not named in the op-ed. But in 2018, this op-ed comes out, and again, Johnny thinks that they're done.
Yeah.
Things are good. And this op-ed, so two things happened in 2018. The first one was that The Sun, a London publisher, came out and called Johnny Depp a wife beater, and that they were shocked that that J.K. Rowling would want to cast a wife beater in the role in this, in the new Harry Potter show or the Fantastic Beasts. And the actual title of the article was called Gone Potty. And so they kind of called J.K. Rowling out and said, well, he sued immediately for libel that newspaper, saying, you can't prove I'm a wife beater.
Right.
Then the op-ed comes out where Amber Heard now says, hey, he is, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. And so he sued Amber Heard for defamation.
Well, and was it the second one that ended up in the Wall Street Journal? Like the op-ed?
The op-ed was what came in the Wall Street Journal, which is why this case is being held in Virginia, because that's where the Wall Street Journal is located. So
and that was one of the things that kind of came up on the stand, is they were talking about, the son, and like that was like, that's the one that actually names him, right?
Right.
And they're like, well, that's like, because it was in that one, like that's the one that we need to be focusing on. And the response to that is like, it's muckraking yellow journalism. Like that's the one that has like topless like women on like the third page. And so they're like, we shouldn't be taking that one very seriously. Whereas like it's in the Wall Street Journal. Like that has like a lot of like, that one's the important one that we really need to be looking at. And regardless of whether he's named in it or not, it proves like that's something that people are going to take seriously. Whereas the Sun, people could kind of just shirk that off.
Yeah. And what's interesting about the Sun, so they had this big trial in London. It wasn't made public. So we were not able to see any of the testimony, what was come out. We were not able to see the evidence. All that was made public was like the 55-page published opinion of the judge, the sitting judge. And that case came and Johnny Depp resoundingly lost. Not only that, the judge found 12 instances where he found that it would define what a wife beater is and as true. And then Johnny Depp's team tried to appeal it, and he lost the ability to even appeal it.
Yeah.
So here we are, this was a year and a half ago, we find this out. As soon as that comes out, two major things happen. He loses his role in the Harry Potter. And then he also, Disney drops him.
Yeah. From
Pirates of the Caribbean. Which, you can't have a Pirates of the Caribbean without Johnny Depp. I mean, he is Jack Sparrow. So those were two major things that happened. And then we have this defamation case in Virginia that's been going on. And again, is finishing this week. And we're going to be able to get what the juror. And the judge made it public. Johnny Depp's team wanted it public. Amber Heard's team objected and said it shouldn't be made public, and the judge overruled and said, nope, we're going to make it public. And we've been able to see everything.
Yeah.
And so we've been able to see all of the exhibits are made public. You can go to the county website, Fairfax, Virginia, where they are, and you can find all the exhibits. You can hear all the testimony. The only thing we're not privy to, which makes sense, is any time that they sidebar with the judge.
Yeah.
Which, as an attorney, I'm like, I want to know what
yeah, what are they talking about?
And so it's just been a crazy time. So one of the things I wanted to say is when I made my prediction at the beginning of the case, looking at the evidence, I thought Johnny Depp had such a hard uphill battle. The fact that he had this British judge who already found that there was 12 instances that could, characterize him as a wife beater. I felt like it was going to be really hard, and therefore I thought he was going to lose his defamation case. But I predicted that the public opinion of Johnny was going to allow him to come back into Hollywood because he's clearly part of cancel culture. Mm-hmm. And I think that was premature. And now that all the evidence came out, I thought that he was going to be uncanceled and Hollywood was going to let him come back in. So now we're just kind of talking about the trial. And we want to talk about some of the objections that are happening all the time through the trial. So a couple of things that are really, evident is that Johnny Depp's team is on fire.
Well, and there's that one lady who does all of the objections, and it seems like that's her job.
Camille Vasquez.
It's just objection.
Yeah. Which is great. I mean, if I was there, this would be my jam. Cross-examination and being able to call somebody out on proper objections is really, really important, and I would love it. I want to be her best friend. Camille, call me. So let's just go through some of the objections. This is more legal stuff, but I think that a lot of people would find it kind of interesting what's going on. Yeah. So go ahead, Sterling, talk about that.
Yeah, so there's just kind of a list of objections that you can make. we can just kind of go through them and talk about them a little bit, I guess. So relevance is like a big one, where you can be asking questions, and if it's not relevant to what you're actually, like, any of the things that are actually being discussed or argued over, then it can be, that sort of objection could be sustained, and you can just, what was stated that's considered irrelevant can be also stricken.
So one of the things about this case is that they have let everything in. In fact, I've only heard relevance objection, I think, maybe once. And I thought that was really, really interesting, because I was like, why are they letting them talk about this? Or, they're going clear back to, so far before the divorce. Or I was like, some of this is not relevant. And what I've decided is that Johnny Depp's team purposely is letting everything in. And I really think that even though some of the evidence really hurts Johnny, by them letting it all in, I think that that's what's really led to his credibility, that he's not trying to hide anything. He's got his problems, he's had his issues, and they're letting everything in, which, again, I don't know if that's going to help him on his defamation case, but it clearly has helped him on winning back the court of public opinion.
Yeah, well, and it also seems like a bit of a strategy to kind of, like, to use a bit of an adage, is like, give Amber enough rope to hang herself.
Yeah.
Like, because then they get to go back, and if they're letting it all in, then on cross they can be like, oh, wait, like, here's all these inconsistencies in your testimony.
Yeah.
Which really hurts her credibility. So, and there's more that I've got, that we've got a list of, but I think the ones that are more, that we're hearing a lot in this is leading. Like, that's one that I'm hearing constantly, like, leading.
If on Amber Heard's side, the Johnny Depp's are having to object to leading, because if you have to prep a witness, right? And you cannot lead your own witness into the testimony. You need the court. So you should be asking these open-ended questions, and your witnesses should be able to answer it. Amber Heard's side cannot.
Yeah.
And it's been frustrating to their attorneys, and so they want to lead them to the direction of where they need to go. Well, you can't. And the judge is sustaining the objections.
Yeah.
If you don't prep your witness enough, or if they don't know their story well enough. So that's been very good objections on Johnny Depp's side.
Well, and then the reverse side of that, when you're doing cross-examination, you are allowed to ask leading questions.
Right.
Like, that's when it's allowed. And so we're hearing it a lot on direct, but then on the cross-examination, that's not an objection that you can make.
Right. One of the major objections that we're hearing a lot is foundation. But I was actually surprised that when Amber Heard was testifying, and she testified for, I think, 4 days, Johnny Depp's team was not objecting to foundation more. So let me explain. So foundation is being able to lay the reasons why you know something. So he hit me. Well, you want foundation. When was it? Where was it? You want to be able to lay the specifics around why they know that specific fact. And with Amber Heard, she kept saying, he hit me several times throughout our relationship. And I wanted to be like, foundation. I wanted to go through every specific time. I now know why they didn't do that. Because they nailed her on cross. Because they had her deposition and prior testimony from the prior hearing to where they had been more specific. And she was not able to nail down those times. So she lost credibility because she was so wrong on some of her stories. But I kept thinking, I'm like, why aren't they objecting to foundation? And they like you said, they wanted to let her go because they wanted her to hang herself.
Yeah. And then the other one that I was hearing a lot today, and today is I was watching the cross-examination for I think he's the therapist. The guy who's got balding, he's got crazy white hair.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, he is so, like, when it's Johnny Depp's team that's asking him questions, he's just like rude and short and like seems to be getting really, really flustered. And it's like, this is your job, man. Like, this is what you do for a living.
Right.
And like, I get it. Like, you're supposed to be a little bit, like, that's kind of, I don't know, maybe a performative aspect of it. But one of the things that I'm seeing a lot is non-responsive for the questions that are being asked. And normally you use that, like, when you think about that, it's like that they're not answering the question at all, but that's not non-responsive. It's when, and we see it with politicians a lot, where you ask a question and then they answer the question that they want to answer rather than the one that you actually ask.
And that's been a big issue with the objection as well. The other thing that I'm surprised of is narrative. So the court doesn't like stories. They like you to ask a question and then specifically answer it. But with like Amber Heard or her sister, they would ask a question and they would just let her go on. I mean, Amber Heard, she was looking directly at the jury, telling her story, and she'd go on for 12 minutes telling her story. Usually an attorney would object, narrative, and make it so that she just answered the specific question. But again, that was a tactic. They just wanted her to go, and it really did hurt her.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun as an attorney looking at the objections, the strategy of the attorneys. Shout out to Johnny Depp's team. There's 6 attorneys. 4 of them are women. They're fairly young. They're about, they graduated law school a few years after me. So practicing maybe 10 years. Camille, I know, graduated in 2010. And they're just on it. I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch, like, the skill and, like, the collaboration that they all seem to be going in with. And then it's like Amber's team is just, like, falling apart.
Yeah.
It's crumbling. And it's just so interesting to see, like, the different strategies coming from both sides. And it seems like with Depp's team, there's a very clear strategy. Whereas, like, and I wonder if part of it is, like, client control, which is super important. And we don't really, like, you don't think about too much with this. But, like, if she's not helping her own case, like, they're going to be put in a really tough spot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is. There's been a couple times when Amber Heard hasn't risen for the jury and they have to, like, tell her to stand up. There's been times when she walked out of the courtroom before the jury had left the room. Amber is being rude. The jury's noticing that.
Yeah.
And from people that have been in the courtroom and have looked at Amber, like when Amber was on the stand and she was, like, testifying to the jury, people were talking about how that made Amber really uncomfortable. That made the jury really uncomfortable. And they stopped looking at her and they were looking down because she was, like, wanting them to believe what she was saying.
Yeah. And that would be just a weird experience. Like, you're just, you got pulled in for jury duty.
Yeah.
And now you've got Amber Heard, like, staring you in the eyes. Like, that would make me very uncomfortable.
Right. And then there's been a couple problems. Like, Amber Heard testified about Kate Moss. And now Kate Moss is going to be able to come to the stand. And they opened that door, even though Kate Moss had been taken off as a witness. But now she gets to go on as rebuttal to prove that Amber lied about something. It's not looking good for Amber.
No.
So let's talk about what does Johnny Depp and Amber Heard have to prove in their defamation case. So go ahead and tell them.
Yeah. So for defamation, and when you're dealing with a public figure, it changes a little bit. But for defamation, it needs to be false statement purporting to be fact. So just lying. And then doing it through, like, publication or communication of that statement to a third person. Fault amounting to at least negligence, and I'll come back on that. And then the final one is damages. But the thing that's different when you're a public figure is that fault amounting to at least negligence is not the standard. Mm-hmm. You need to show that it was actually malicious, that what you were doing was for the purpose of, like, hurting their career and damaging their reputation. And then the other thing that they're arguing is, like, it's defamation per se. And for that, you get to say that the statements in and of themselves are so damaging that you don't even have to prove that there were actual damages. Like, they've done that. They're definitely proving damages, and that's more for probably the settlement and what they could get out of it as far as, like, monetarily. But that requirement to show actual damages is no longer a part of what you need to show. And then there's some common examples that are given for statements that are defamation per se, and it's making, like, claims that the other person has communicable diseases, has committed a crime, is dishonest in their work, and then sexual violence and domestic violence, which is what they're doing. Like, that would definitely fall into the category of crime.
Right. And so Johnny Depp sued Amber Heard for the op-ed for $50 million. And then Amber Heard countersued for $100 million for defamation. And her claim is that Johnny and his team has just done this smear campaign to smear her name. So let's talk about what our predictions are of how this case is going to go forward. So let's start with Amber Heard's case. What is your prediction of Amber Heard proving defamation?
I think that the hits to her credibility are going to be huge, and so I don't see her succeeding in this at all.
Right. So, first of all, the one thing that I think she's going to lose is she can't pinpoint specifically the things that were hurting her. Her expert that needed to get on the stand to specifically do this was a social media forensic guy who had never testified before and done a case specifically to this. So his whole job was to look at Twitter and to look at the, hashtags out there and to specifically delineate into an ROI basically of how much it affected and hurt her career. Well, the problem is, as of today, Amber Heard still has a career.
Yeah.
She's in Aquaman too. Some of the hashtags and memes that are coming out during trial and not prior.
Yeah.
And all of that's not going to matter.
Yeah.
And so my thing is that she cannot prove that Johnny Depp came up with these hashtags, put it out there to defame her, that then caused her damages. I just don't think Amber Heard has a case. I don't think she can show defamation, and I don't think she can show that it hurt her.
Yeah.
Especially with Warner Brothers coming out. So she specifically testified that she almost lost Aquaman 2 and that Warner Brothers was going to let her go, and she had to beg and plead to keep her in the show. She was paid like $7 million for Aquaman 2. And what came out this week is that Warner Brothers released a statement, one of the high execs or whatever, released a statement that said, that is not true. We were never going to cut her from Aquaman 2 because of Johnny Depp or because of her divorce. The reason why her time has been significantly, reduced in Aquaman 2 is because of the chemistry between her and the lead actor, which is Jason Momoa. That came out this week. Oh. So that's just another thing to show she lied, that she was never going to lose Aquaman 2. And in the case, even though her time's been reduced in the show, she still got paid.
Yeah.
The exact same. And Warner Brothers had already come out and said, we were never going to give her $1 more than what we offered her. Because she claimed that she could have gotten more money. And Warner Brothers said no. So I just don't think... My prediction is she loses. She does not get $1 for her defamation claim. And the juror does not rule in her favor.
Yeah. Well, and to go back to just kind of what you've been saying the whole time is this seems to be a PR campaign for Johnny Depp, and this is any reduction in work that Amber has from here on out is the result of this case.
Right.
And so that's, and you can't use that and it's factual too.
Right.
That's a big part of defamation is It has to be inaccurate.
Right. And the thing about Amber Heard is she's going to claim, Johnny Depp, succeeded. I'm a survivor of domestic violence and therefore, he hurt me. But let's look at the facts. There are specific proof that she was violent toward Johnny. Okay? There is specific proof to show that she egged him on, that he would try to leave and she would egg him on. I mean, there is specific proof that he was sober, but she was an absolute trigger for him. Mm-hmm. And then there is proof that, he would drink and he would do cocaine, but there is not specific evidence that he physically hit her. He threw wine glasses. He called her horrible names. He would send horrible texts to people about her. All that is true. But at the end of the day, I think what's hurt Amber the most is her.
Yeah.
Why did she have to come out after the divorce was done? She was, given money. She was moving on. Why? Why did she have to come out with that? Why did she say she was going to donate every penny and she didn't?
Yeah.
It's been shown that Elon Musk has paid $500,000 to the ACLU on her behalf. So why did she lie about that? Why did she lie about her being volatile toward him? Like, there's so much to show that she has lied. And in my mind, she was using the Me Too movement to help her career.
Yeah.
And it backfired on her.
Horribly.
And we could do a whole podcast on this. And in fact, I am doing a podcast on this later this week to talk about the effects that her lies are going to now have on the future of Me Too.
Yeah.
And it makes me mad because there are real women of domestic violence. There are real women survivors who need voices that aren't going to use the movement to benefit their career. And I think that that's what she did.
Well, because it hurts, like, every time there's that kind of stuff, like, oh, this person lied, always gets pointed to as, like, a counter when someone is trying to, like, make a claim. And it's so hurtful and so bad for, like, the movement as a whole, because it's, like, these people need this, like, protection, and then we've got this one person who's, like, making stuff up and doing it in a very public way.
Right.
That it just hurts the whole movement overall.
It hurts it. And so let's move to Johnny Depp. So in the beginning of this case, I made a prediction. I did a video on my Instagram, and it has over 3 million views over the internet. And my prediction was that they were both going to lose, but that Johnny really was the winner because the court of public opinion was going to uncancel him, like we said, and bring him back to Hollywood.
Yeah.
I still maintain that has happened. The public opinion is fully supporting Johnny, and he's going to make money in Hollywood again. But let's talk about his case. Can Johnny prove defamation, and can he prove damages? What's your prediction, Sterling?
I mean, I was with you in the beginning where I was like, yeah, like there's defamation just so hard to prove. It's usually a losing argument to make. But the way that this has all played out is insane. Like the way, like the credibility that he's building, the way that they've been able to hurt her credibility, I think, and I mean, if we're just looking at the prongs, I think that he's satisfying them. I think he could win on this. I mean, there's, it's up to the jury, and the jury instruction is going to be incredibly important. But I think that he actually stands a chance to win this. Yeah,
it's in my mind. My prediction is that he does have a good chance of winning this too. But it's all going to come down to what they instruct the jury on what domestic violence is. Because in my mind, throwing glasses, threatening to commit suicide right in front of you, and cut your wrists are all elements that could, in my mind, satisfy the prong of domestic violence. And therefore, I think he has committed some domestic violence toward her. I don't believe that there is evidence to show he's physically hit her. And I think that's the biggest thing. And if the jury does not believe the sister, because the sister is the only person that has been able to testify that they saw Johnny hit Amber, if they don't believe the sister, then now there is a chance that he could win. And I don't think he'll win $50 million. And there's two reasons why. He lost the Disney contract, which that clearly was he lost the Disney contract with Pirates of the Caribbean, after a court in London found that he had committed acts of violence that would, consider him a wife beater. Mm-hmm. And Disney did not have a contract with him at that time. Disney did not have another Pirates of the Caribbean that they had signed him for. Harry Potter, he did get removed from that role, but they had to pay him out of his contract. Yeah. And he made $20 million off of that, even though he didn't show. So I think the damages aren't going to be as big as he wants. He wants, the future earnings basically of Pirates of the Caribbean. But I don't think it's going to be as much. In fact, I think he should get his attorney fees back for winning, and then in the amount of possibly between $1 million to $10 million. And if the jury finds defamation, they can assess the fees that he is given, and I think it could be between $1 million to $10 million.
Yeah,
that's my prediction. But again, it's all up in those 7 jurors that are sitting in that box that have been hearing the entirety of the case. And at the end of the day, there's still a chance that they come back and say he wasn't defamed, and they could deny his case as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a lot up in, like, it comes down to those 7 people, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And, I mean, and that's always, like, the heartburn for cases is, like, you could be like, I've put together such a good case and I believe I can't imagine that I will lose. And then it comes back and it's ultimately up to somebody else, like, whether it's a judge or 7 jurors. And, like, that's always really difficult to, like, just to deal with that kind of thing.
It's going to be fun, and we're going to find out this week. This is another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. Remember to go to my Instagram, Jill Coyle. You can go to my TikTok, Jill Coyle. It has all fun snippets and my commentary on this case. It has just been fascinating, and the ending is going to be interesting. And we'll break it all down for you and make sure you have the latest and greatest. Join us for another episode of No One Dies from Divorce. Thanks, Sterling, for joining me.
Thanks, Jill.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed, please subscribe, follow, and share. I'd love to hear your questions and feedback. You can contact me at community@jillcoyle.com. See you next time. I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. Any advice given on the podcast is general and shall not be construed as legal advice.